The bait. Elk's very first appearance in the series is through a calculated trap designed to narrow down Kira's location. He arranges for a death row inmate named Lind L. Taylor to appear on television, claiming to be L himself and directly challenging Kira to kill him. When Light takes the bait and kills Taylor, L immediately deduces several critical pieces of information. First, he confirms that Kira can kill remotely without physical contact. Second, he narrows Kira's location to the Kanto region of Japan, as the broadcast was only shown in that area. Third, he determines that Kira needs a face and a name to kill, since Taylor was introduced by name on the broadcast. What makes this moment particularly brilliant is the psychological aspect. L reveals himself after the killing, explaining his entire trick to Kira and essentially taunting him. This serves two purposes. It establishes L as a direct threat that Kira cannot ignore, and it begins the psychological warfare that defines their entire conflict. The risk L took here was calculated but significant. If Kira had chosen not to kill Taylor, L would have gained nothing. However, L correctly predicted that Kira's ego and sense of justice would compel him to act, which gave L his first major breakthrough in the case. One of L's most creative moments comes when he arranges for Light to take the entrance exam at 2O University, while L takes the same exam. In the exam, L actually gets in trouble for sitting weird in the exam hall, and that's also the same time when Light and L lock eyes for the first time. After the exams, Light and L are invited to the stage for delivering a speech for getting perfect scores in the exam. This time, L actually carries a false name, Hideki Ryuga. After the speech, when they sit beside each other in a rather spontaneous moment, L reveals his true identity. The brilliance here is multi-layered. First, L is testing whether Light will react to the provocation. A guilty person might make a mistake under pressure. The sudden appearance of L, someone Light has only known as a mysterious voice and letter, creates an environment where even the most controlled individual might slip up. Second, he's establishing a personal connection that will allow him to observe Light closely over an extended period. By becoming Light's peer and classmate, L gains access to Light's daily life in a way that wouldn't be possible through surveillance alone. Third, he's demonstrating his own intelligence by scoring perfectly on the exam alongside Light, establishing himself as an intellectual equal. This is crucial because it shows Light that L isn't just some detective relying on police resources. He's someone who can match Light's genius step for step. The score becomes a statement of capability and a subtle form of intimidation. L also uses this opportunity to build a friendship with Light, which serves as both a cover for his investigation and a way to manipulate Light's actions. By positioning himself as Light's friend and rival, L creates a situation where Light cannot eliminate him without drawing massive suspicion. If L dies under mysterious circumstances while publicly associated with Light, it would immediately implicate Light in the investigation. What really makes this approach effective is that it forces Light into a defensive position. Light cannot act freely while under L's direct observation, which slows down his plans considerably and gives L more time to gather evidence. One of L's most impressive deductions comes when a second Kira begins operating in Japan. This new Kira starts sending video messages to the original Kira, attempting to make contact and offer assistance. L immediately recognizes that this is a different person based on several key differences in their methods and behavior. The second Kira demonstrates abilities that the first Kira doesn't seem to possess. Most notably, this new Kira can kill with only a face, without needing a name. This is evident when they kill multiple people whose names weren't publicly available, which the original Kira had never done before. L correctly theorizes that the two Kiras operate under different rules or have access to different information. L also notices differences in personality and motivation. The second Kira is more reckless and emotional, sending public messages that risk exposure. The original Kira, who L suspects is highly intelligent and calculated, would never take such unnecessary risks. This behavioral contrast confirms that two separate individuals are now using the killing power. What makes this deduction particularly brilliant is how L uses it strategically. He recognizes that the second Kira represents both a threat and an opportunity. If the two Kiras try to meet, L can potentially catch them both. He begins planning surveillance and traps specifically designed to intercept any communication or meeting between them. L also deduces that the second Kira is likely connected to the first Kira emotionally rather than professionally. The messages suggest someone who admires Kira rather than a calculated partner, which helps L narrow down what type of person the second Kira might be. This leads directly to him suspecting Misa, who fits the profile of an emotional, impulsive supporter. One of L's final major moves is proposing a test of the 13-day rule written in the Death Note. According to the rule, if a person doesn't write a name within 13 days of their last use, they die. L suggests testing this by having a death row inmate write a name, then observing whether they die on the 14th day. This proposal demonstrates L's commitment to finding the truth regardless of moral implications. He's willing to potentially kill an innocent person to verify the rule's authenticity, which shows how far he's willing to go to catch Kira. The logic behind the test is sound. If the rule is real, the inmate dies, and the notebook's rules are confirmed. If the rule is fake, the inmate survives, and Light's innocence is immediately disproven. What makes this moment particularly significant is that it reveals how close L is to catching Light. He has narrowed down his suspicions to the point where he's willing to propose an extreme test that would definitively prove or disprove Light's guilt. The fact that L is pushing for this test shows he's exhausted nearly every other avenue of investigation. The plan is ultimately rejected by the Japanese task force on moral and legal grounds, which frustrates L but doesn't surprise him. He understands that his methods often conflict with standard procedure and ethics, but he believes the ends justify the means when dealing with someone as dangerous as Kira. L's instincts here are completely correct. The 13-day rule is indeed fake, added by Rem to protect Light. However, without being able to test it, L cannot prove his theory, which represents one of the few times his hands are tied by limitations outside his control. If the test had been conducted and the inmates survived, it would have exposed the rule as false and reignited suspicion on Light and Misa, potentially leading to their arrests and the end of Kira's reign. This moment showcases both L's brilliance and the tragedy of his situation. He knows the truth but cannot act on it due to the constraints of working within a legal system that prioritizes ethics over results. Perhaps L's greatest skill isn't any single deduction, but his overall understanding of Light's character. From their first meeting, L recognizes that Light is driven by ego, pride, and a genuine belief in his own righteousness. This psychological insight guides every decision L makes throughout the investigation. L knows that Light cannot resist a challenge, which is why he repeatedly provokes him with statements like, "I'm going to make you confess," or "You're my first friend." But these aren't casual remarks. They're calculated to get under Light's skin and potentially force him into a mistake. L understands that Light's need to prove his superiority is both his greatest strength and his most exploitable weakness. He also understands that Light's intelligence makes him dangerous in a unique way. A less intelligent Kira might have been caught quickly through conventional detective work, but Light's ability to plan multiple steps ahead means L has to do the same. Their conflict becomes a chess match where both players can see numerous moves into the future, and every action carries hidden meaning. L recognizes that Light's sense of justice, while twisted, is genuine. Light truly believes he's creating a better world, which makes him more committed and less likely to give up than someone motivated purely by selfishness. This ideological commitment means Light will take risks and make sacrifices that a typical criminal wouldn't, which L factors into his predictions of Light's behavior. Throughout their interactions, L studies Light's micro-expressions, speech patterns, and decision-making processes. He notices when Light is uncomfortable, when he's calculating, and when he's genuinely surprised. This accumulated psychological data allows L to build an increasingly accurate model of how Light thinks and reacts. L's death ultimately comes not from being outsmarted by Light, but from the intervention of Rem, a variable he couldn't fully account for. Even at the end, L maintains his suspicions about Light and dies knowing he was right, even if he couldn't prove it. His legacy continues through Nier and Mello, who eventually succeed where L could not, largely by building on the foundation L established. In my opinion, what really makes L so effective is his willingness to trust his instincts even when evidence is lacking. He knows Light is Kira long before he can prove it, and that conviction drives him to continue investigating even when conventional detective work reaches dead ends.